I was savoring the last sip of my morning coffee when a sharp, demanding knock rattled my front door. Not a polite tap, the kind that hits you like a fist in the gut. I opened it to find two uniformed officers looming on the porch, and behind them stood a woman I'd noticed prowling the sidewalks recently, jabbing her finger at me like she was identifying a fugitive. "HOA Karen, that's him. That's the squatter," she shrieked, cheeks blazing with self-righteous fury. "He doesn't belong here." I stood frozen, mug still in hand, brain struggling to catch up. "Excuse me, this is my house. I've lived here 15 years. The woman later introduced to me as Karen Mitchell, our brand new HOA president, pushed forward, nearly elbowing one of the officers aside. "We have zero record of this man. He appeared out of thin air and started occupying an abandoned property." I carefully set my mug on the entry table, reached for my wallet, and tried to keep my voice level. "Officers, here's my ID. Michael Chen. This exact address." I handed over my driver's license. "I can also show you the deed if you'd like." One officer studied the license while the other turned to Karen with a raised eyebrow. "Ma'am, filing a false report is serious. This looks like his legal residence." Karen's face twisted in outrage. "That ID could be fake. He probably forged everything. You need to drag him out right now." The officers exchanged a weary look that told me this was about to become an all-day ordeal. Here's the thing. I was one of the original owners in Oakwood Estates. I bought in when it was nothing but red dirt, survey stakes, and construction noise. I watched every street get paved, every tree planted. But for the last 3 years, I'd been gone, 3,000 miles away in Arizona, taking care of my parents. Dad's Alzheimer's had progressed faster than anyone expected, and Mom couldn't handle it alone. They died within months of each other last year. When the funerals were over and the house there was sold, I came back to the only place that still felt like home. While I was away, I'd rented the house to a nice young couple who moved out right before I returned. HOA dues continued to auto-draft every month. I just wasn't physically here. Apparently, my 3 years of absence were all Karen needed to declare my house abandoned and me an intruder. Karen Mitchell had blown into the neighborhood 2 years ago and rocketed up the HOA ladder, crowning herself president 6 months ago. Neighbors described her reign as a one-woman regime change, fining people for blades of grass that dared grow half an inch too long and inventing emergency regulations whenever the mood struck. "Officers, I'm happy to show you whatever you need," I said, forcing calm past the hammering in my chest. "Deed, tax records, utility bills, please. Come in." As the officers stepped inside, Karen tried to bulldoze her way in behind them. "I'm coming too." As HOA president, I have every right, ma'am," the taller officer cut in, voice like steel. "Step back. This is private property, but he could be destroying evidence right now," she screeched, high enough to make dogs 3 streets over howl. "Wait on the lawn or leave the property. Your choice." I caught a glimpse of neighbors clustering across the street as I closed the door. Inside, I spread out 15 years of paperwork across the kitchen island. Everything matched. "Officer Rodriguez name tag finally readable," finished confirming my identity over the radio and looked almost embarrassed. "I'm really sorry you got dragged into this, Mr. Chen." "Clear misunderstanding." I gave a tired laugh. "Misunderstanding is putting it kindly." Rodriguez lowered his voice. "Has this woman been bothering you before today?" I exhaled. "Pretty much non-stop since I got back. First, it was passive-aggressive notes demanding I present myself to the board. Then she started interrogating neighbors about me. Last week, she taped an official-looking violation notice to Midor, or claiming I was occupying a residence without HOA registration. I've owned this house since before she even knew this zip code existed. I showed them the notice, pure nonsense on Fox legal letterhead. Rodriguez shook his head. "Did you try explaining the situation to her?" I left a detailed voicemail the day I got back, using the number in the HOA newsletter. Explained that I was the original owner, returning after family deaths. She never responded, just escalated straight to calling the cavalry. Through the front window, we could see Karen stalking circles on my grass, phone glued to her ear, no doubt rallying the troops. It only got worse from there. Over the following week, as she turned harassment into an art form. Slow drive-bys with her phone up, snapping photos, getting caught peeking through my windows. She insisted she was checking for covenant violations, distributing flyers warning about a suspicious squatter who had infiltrated Oakwood Estates. She even called an emergency HOA meeting to address the security threat. Half the room walked out once they realized who she was gunning for. The final straw was a certified letter on fancy HOA stationery giving me 48 hours to vacate or face legal action. I phoned the actual property management company we contract with. They had no idea what I was talking about and sounded mortified. And that was only the beginning. The property management rep sounded like she wanted to crawl through the phone and hide under my desk when I read Karen's eviction letter aloud. "Sir, the HOA cannot evict anyone. That letter is pure fiction," she said, horrified. "I'm escalating this to the board right now." But Karen was already 3 moves ahead of any paperwork. Exactly 24 hours after her certified ultimatum, she returned with police in tow claiming I was a violent squatter who had forcibly occupied an abandoned house and was refusing to vacate. S. Officer Rodriguez, Officer Williams, and I stepped back onto the porch. Karen stood there, arms folded, wearing the smuggest grin I'd ever seen. It vanished the instant she registered. The officers' grim faces. "Miss Mitchell," Officer Williams began, "Mr. Chen has provided overwhelming proof that he is the legal owner of this residence. He purchased it 15 years ago, long before you ever moved here." "That's impossible," Karen sputtered. "I was in Arizona caring for my parents while they were dying," I said, anger finally bleeding through. "Which I explained in the voicemail I left you, the one you ignored." Officer Rodriguez fixed her with a stare. "Ma'am, did you bother to check county records? Did you call the management company? Did you verify anything before you reported Mr. Chen as a criminal squatter?" Her cheeks flamed. "I know every single person in this neighborhood. He's an intruder." At that moment, Eleanor, my next-door neighbor and a retired Superior Court judge who'd lived here as long as I had, marched over clutching her phone. "Officers, you need to see this." She pulled up her ring footage. "I put cameras up last year after someone kept stealing my newspapers. Watch what I caught 2 days ago." The video was crystal clear. Karen skulking around my backyard fence, pressing her face to windows, then actually twisting my back door handle to see if it would open too. 15 p.m. on a Tuesday while I was at the office. Officer Rodriguez's eyebrows shot up. "Miss Mitchell, were you on Mr. Chen's private property without permission?" "I was performing an official HOA inspection," she snapped, but her voice cracked. "On a random Tuesday afternoon with no notice and no board authorization?" Eleanor cut in. "I have footage from 3 other days too." By now, half the cul-de-sac had gathered. People started speaking up. She threatened to fine me $500 because my garage door was open for 45 minutes. Frank called out. "She told me my kids weren't allowed to play in our own front yard because it lowers curb appeal," Marie added. Officer Williams turned to Karen. "Ma'am, step over to my patrol car, please. We need to have a serious conversation about false police reports and trespassing. This is insane. I'm the president of the HOA." She shrieked. "Your title doesn't grant you immunity from the law," Rodriguez said flatly. "And from what we're hearing, you've been weaponizing that title for months." Right then, black sedan pulled to the curb. A sharply dressed man got out and introduced himself as Robert Daniels, general counsel for the HOA's management company. "Miss Mitchell," he said, voice calm and arctic, "after Mr. Chen's call yesterday, the board held an emergency vote. You have been immediately removed from the presidency and the board entirely for repeated violations of the bylaws and acting without authority." Karen went sheet white. "You can't, they elected me." Daniels handed her a letter. Section 8.3 allows instant removal for abuse of power. Trying to have a 15-year resident arrested because you didn't recognize him was apparently the last straw. While Daniels spoke, Rodriguez had been quietly relaying everything over the radio. He stepped forward. "Karen Mitchell, turn around. You're under arrest for filing a false police report, criminal trespass, and attempted unlawful entry. This is outrageous. I'll have your badges." I'll sue every one of you, she screamed as the cuffs clicked on. The entire street watched in stunned silence as the self-appointed queen of Oakwood Estates was loaded into the back of a patrol car, mascara streaking, still yelling about property values. 2 days late, the charges were official: 3 misdemeanors, false report to police, criminal trespass, and attempted breaking and entering. Bail was set at $5,000, and the judge slapped a 500-foot restraining order on her regarding my house. She was looking at up to a year behind bars and $2,500 in fines, plus whatever her lawyer was going to cost. But the cherry on top came when the association hit her with a civil suit for misuse of HOA funds. Those pretty flyers calling me a dangerous squatter weren't cheap and defamation. They were asking for $15,000. Witnesses at the jail said, when the deputy handed her the civil papers, Karen sank into a plastic chair, stared blankly at the wall, and kept whispering, "I was only protecting our property values. I was only protecting our property values."